Hey, what's up, guys? It's Ex-Morgan with My Spiritual Life, and today we are going to be talking about finding purpose after leaving a cult, a high-demand religion, or Mormonism, or, just whatever you felt like leaving today. And I'm really excited because I have two awesome guests. First off, I have AJ, and he's got a channel called The Money Store, linked below. AJ is an Luz Del Mundo member, which is a religion similar to Mormonism, but far more strict. I'm ex-Mormon if you're new to the channel, and my good buddy Ubermormon is also ex-Mormon, and he also has a channel linked below. Thank you guys for being here.
Yes,
of course. Thank you.
This is gonna be a freaking party. Okay, I really wanted to talk about this topic, and funny. I just got a message. I'm gonna pull it up. I just got a message the other day, actually, from someone who was asking about like this very specific topic, and it was actually after I already planned this video. The first thing I want to talk about as we're exploring this is when you leave a high demand religion, a cult, anything like that. It's very, very normal to experience a period of feeling very depressed, very purposeless, very aimless, very scared, very lonely. And that will happen not even if you're just leaving a religion, but any kind of big change in life. Like if you go through maybe a divorce or some kind of, big life change like that. So just like, first off, setting that precedence that if you're leaving a religion and you're struggling to find meaning and purpose, that is just so normal. And it's almost just like a step in the journey. And it's a painful step, but it's one that is just there. And I've never heard of anyone not go through it unless they just weren't really into the church that they were involved in to begin with. So did you guys have any thoughts about that just kind of before we get into tips and stuff?
You go first, AJ. And
okay. Yes, for sure. I'll say that just to back up everything that you've said, everything can be discombobulating, and I like that word because it's confusing, and that this is, as you said, it is just basically necessary within the process, and if anything, it's something that can be embraced as a sort of marker of like something that you're acknowledging, given being in a sort of high demand religious organization, or just any sort of other thing that seems to be negative that you're deciding to act on and address to some extent. It naturally is going to come with the struggles of that, and so that is key. Keep that cognizant within everything else that we end up discussing, because your brain can only just do so much at any one moment, and it just takes time to just let the engines run on just enduring that, and then just a bunch of other stuff. Yeah.
That's cool. I get like really bad, like every time I leave anything, I have an identity crisis. So like today I was at the grocery store, and then I walked out of Smith's and I was like, God damn it, who am I? I don't know who I am anymore without Smith's. Little levity. No, what I was gonna say is, so I love, there's this old psychologist named Erik Erikson, and he has this identity stage. He divided the human life into 8 stages, and it's stage 3 or 4. I always forget because there are 8 stages, but it's called identity. Like it's identity versus role confusion. And in this stage, he talks about how it's essentially like a flow chart. There are 2 questions, and you can say yes or no to both of them. And the questions are, has the identity crisis arrived, and have you made a decision yet? So if a person says, no, it hasn't arrived, and no, I haven't made a decision, they fall into a category called identity diffusion. And that, like, over a long period of time, you just kind of dissipate if you stay in that stage forever. But if eventually it arrives and you say, yes, I have made a decision, then you are in something called identity achievement. And that's the gold standard. And Erikson projected that people would arrive at their identity achievement by the age of 19. Now, what's interesting about what we're talking about today, this stage takes place from 12 to 19. And there are two other segments that we're not going to talk about. It's the yes, no, and the no, yes. But essentially what's interesting about this is, as a person who left Mormonism about 3 or 4 years ago at this point, I feel like I had to redo this process. So like going from, I thought that I had my identity, and then I would turn like 25, and then I had an identity crisis, and I had to do it all over again. And that's not just a Mormon thing. Like, obviously, AJ, you went through a similar thing, leaving the religion that you were in, and then yesterday at Smith's, you know, I did it again. So it's just like, it's good to have language for this, and that would be my number one tip, is like, study identity versus role confusion, go through that flow chart, and just ask yourself where you are, because I think everybody knows internally kind of where they are, and it's helpful to have a starting place on a map, if that makes sense. Sorry, that was long, but that's my answer.
Never apologize for who you are, Ubermormon.
For sure.
Whether you've left Mormonism, or we've got some people on tonight that are in the process of leaving Jehovah's Witnesses, leaving LLDM, or leaving Smiths, we are here for you.
Yes.
I actually I like that you brought that up, Ubermormon, because I feel like I am having a faith crisis again in my life, and I feel like it happens every time I am just going through a hard time with something, or a big change, or, you know, or just even a change in perspective. And it is you know, it's tricky to deal with that. And okay, I'm not even kidding, as we speak right now, it's Tuesday night, I can see the Relief Society presidency walking up to my front door. And the awkward thing is they can probably see me through the window. So anyway, that's just a side note. I'm like, oh, it's Tuesday. Here they are. They're doing their visiting teaching. Good for them. They're going to think I'm ignoring them, and that's okay, because I'm secure in myself. All right, Here we go. So it's a real void, you know, it's a real void when you leave, of purpose, of belonging, of having those answers. And that is so hard. I remember just feeling this urge of like, okay, Mormonism isn't the answer, but I just want to know what the answer is. What is the answer? And I want to find it, and I want to know what it is. And it's this like craving, right? That's the way it felt to me. And eventually I kind of had to realize that I've learned to word it a little bit better recently. So I'm going to say it this way, that certainty is somewhat of an illusion, right? And when you're used to having what you think is certainty, or what you believe is certainty, when that is removed, you like don't know how to deal with that void. But the truth is, nothing in life is certain. You could die in a car crash tomorrow. Like, you could be diagnosed with a serious disease. Like, your spouse who you think is faithful to you could all of a sudden not be. Like, and of course you don't want any of those things to happen, but there's no certainty that they won't. And any amount of certainty that you think you have may just be something that you think you have that you don't really have. All you really have is control over yourself and your actions, presumably. And anyway, so I think the way that I like to kind of look at it now is just reminding myself, when I have those moments of feeling afraid or depressed or whatever, I just come back to like, okay, I felt certain with Mormonism, and I miss feeling that certainty, but it wasn't really there. I just thought it was there because I thought it was a true church, you know, and when I didn't think it was true anymore, the certainty went away. So I'd love to, you know, hear thoughts on that, or just any other thoughts that are coming to your guys' mind.
Yeah, for sure. I would like to add that that definitely know what place you're coming from, and well, something that did cross my mind rather recently, one of these days, and that has just kind of always crossed my mind, was how like when you're in these high demand religions that promise so much, you know, they one way that they, they acknowledge that they're difficult. They acknowledge that it's difficult to stay away from sin and go to church all the time and give this much volunteer time and this much money and all that stuff, this much of your sort of life. They demand a lot of that, but they acknowledge that it's difficult and that it's a narrow path. It's not something that you can really mess around too much into. But these cults and religious groups in general provide the path, like, nevertheless. And um uh and by like and by even though they are difficult, they provide that path, and it's narrow, but they provide you the path, and they provide you the certainty of, like, you have all the world's answers. It's literally everyone else who is a step behind you, steps more behind you. God didn't choose them, didn't have the mercy on them. These sorts of, like, points that are made on this sort of stuff. And so they tell them that you have the actual truth, and it's something that not everyone can handle, and you're sort of isolated to some extent with it, and you should be appreciative of it. um that is, that sort of certainty is people really want that, of course, as we're gonna discuss tonight. And that because things are, because of that certainty, so much is demanded of you, and that therefore once you give up you give up accepting that, of course it's going to affect you in a lot of ways, and lead you to just question all sorts of things. Yeah, I'll end there.
Yeah, I think I remember when I was in that angsty stage of leaving the church, where I was like still trying to pick fights with my family about it, which went on longer than I wish it had, but we've all been there. It's just who we were. I remember I was having a conversation, and my sister was trying to tell me, like, you're just doing this because it's easier. Like, you're just leaving because it's easier to leave. And she and I were kind of talking about different things, but what I said to her was, it's not easier to think that now I don't have any of the answers. It's easier for you. Like, you're the one with the handbook. You're the one who's like, you have the checklist of what to do to go to heaven. And I just threw that checklist away. That doesn't make it easier. It means that now I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And Morgan, you said, sorry, ex-Morgan. No, Morgan, you said, I got to use your proper name. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Ex-Morgan or something. You were saying nothing in life is certain. And it's like, things are certain, but just the boring stuff is certain. Like, if I hold out a handful of rocks and I'm like, hey, is there an even or odd number of rocks in my hand? Like, we could get to the bottom of that pretty quick, but that doesn't do anything. It's not important. And so life is kind of divided into like this things that are very certain and not that important, and then things that are incredibly uncertain and very hard to figure out and matter so much. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, I guess, of course, the guy who says most things better than me, but I remember in an old Jordan Peterson lecture, he said something like, life is made up of matter, but more importantly, it's made up of things that matter. And of course, like, I should have just said that 5 minutes ago, actually, because it summarizes everything I want to say. But there is certainty in this life, but it's not the stuff that matters. You know what I mean? That, like, I don't know. I'm throwing this back at you because it's very
yeah, I'll pick it up. And also,
Yeah, go for it.
the sort of things that matter is that, judging from my experience in my particular religious organization, I do not deny that people, like, get what I'll call, like, a spiritual fulfillment, like a certain, like, fulfillment that is beyond material means, and something like that. People can feel like genuine. I don't doubt that people feel like genuine sort of love and appreciation and awe and whatever, what have you, towards the idea of, like, the story of Jesus, or towards, like, the idea of having an ancient book, and your particular group being the one that knows how to read it better than everybody else and understands it better, and and you have the creator of the universe on your side, and those sorts of things. I've no doubt that those things have like powerful effects on people, and I certainly had my fair share of them when I believed, and when I was starting to believe in, yeah, I had particular experiences that were like, one could say like out of body experiences, one could say like experiences of just like of just awe and magnificence at like what his existence is, and yeah. Um, yeah, I don't deny people have that, and so yeah, of course, when people like leave these sorts of groups, there's still they're still faced with the fact that why is it that so many people still believe this? Why is it that the people closest to me are still so drawn to this? This has been these sorts of bodies of ideas that constitute religions have been around for so long, and people um just very understandably, it's something to these are the biggest questions that I think anybody could be asking themselves, and um yeah, it's natural to just sort of at least like gaze at the wide array of things that's being questioned when you leave a group.
I so appreciate that you guys are here talking about this with me, because your brains together with my brain are totally unstoppable. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I love your guys' thoughts. Cody, I love how you brought up that whole like we can't be certain about some things, but the important things are the
Yeah.
things that we can. It's so hard, and it's so hard. And I wanted to throw to these comments here that coffee drinking is not a sin. I'm at the hospital with a neighbor right now. Her husband is on his deathbed. She called me crying her eyes out tonight, and I don't know what to tell her. She's talking to the doctors right now. She asked me to pray, and she knows I'm not religious. I told her for her I would. I miss having all the answers. I just wanted to say hugs, because that is a really, really difficult thing. I think that religious or not, oftentimes we don't know how to deal with when someone is dealing with death.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine had her daughter pass away, and it was a really terrible experience. Obviously, that's like one of the worst things that can happen to a person. But what that experience taught me, in particular, was I learned a little bit better how to navigate conversations with someone who has someone that's dying. And I think ultimately the best thing you can do for that person is just be there and listen and just say like, I hear you, and that is so hard, and I'm so sorry. And another thing I learned, just as a side note, is that avoid, like, a lot of people, it's their tendency to want to avoid bringing people up who have died, and that's not actually what that person usually wants. Like, usually they still want that person included, like, in the conversations and stuff, like, depending on who it is. But anyway, good luck, because that is hard. But just know that you're doing a lot of help by being there for that friend, even if you don't want to pray or you don't believe in praying. But I thought that was sweet that you said that you would, because this friend asked, and I thought that was kind.
Yeah. It's I think recognizing that you don't have the answers is the beginning of kind of getting all the answers. Because you're starting back at arrogant or ignorance again. You could be, I mean, I'm gonna slice this up into a false dichotomy probably, but I would rather be ignorant than arrogant. I would rather say I don't know this stuff, and maybe it's right and maybe it's wrong, but I don't know, than think that I know everything. Because they say, like, the more you have, the more you have to lose. I don't actually know who they are, but I've heard that said before. But like, you have to start from nothing. We all start from babies. We all start from people with no experience at anything. Like, anything in your life that you're good at, and anyone who you watch in your life and just think, wow, that person is so good at this. Like, at one point in both of your lives, you both had the same exact talent, and it was zero. So like, you only cut yourself off when you say, I have all the answers, which that was the thing that for me was frustrating about being like when I was religious, is I felt like I had all the answers, but I didn't feel like any of those answers were like helpful to my life. Like, felt like all the answers that I had about the afterlife or the pre-earth life or anything like that didn't affect my day to day. Like, it didn't help me gain perspective to think like, well, when I die, I go to spirit paradise and then I'll be there until the millennium. Like, that didn't help. And so it's one of
That
those things
voice.
again. That's how I talked when I was Mormon. I like went through puberty again after leaving the church. My voice dropped lower again.
Your balls dropped again.
Yeah, they dropped twice.
Okay,
man.
sorry, I
We
interrupted
digress. Yeah, no, that I was getting to the end of my point anyway, so I'm glad you jetted in there. But like, just admitting that you don't have the answers, I think is a huge sign of humility, and you can actually start to get answers from that position.
I will just bounce off that real quick and just say I like that you brought that up, because it's one of those things where it's like, okay, it's painful. It hurts not having the answers. But the one thing you can appreciate about it is that you're open to learning, right? Because like Cody was saying, the minute that you cut yourself off and say, I have all the answers, that's the minute you stop learning, because you say, I don't need to hear anything anyone else says. I have it all. And so it's painful. It is so, so painful when you have this, this belief system and you feel like it's ripped away. But I guess the silver lining is, that you are open to learning. And I think that that's one of the best things that you can do for your life. AJ, did you want to comment on that before I switch topic?
Yeah, definitely. I was going to add that that's the way what you just brought up about how being someone who is in a sort of high demand religion, a cult, what have you, um, and becoming one of those people, one of the one could use the word fanatics, or just one of the hardcore believers, or at least um, one of the believers in the mold of the way that the doctrine wants you to be. If you become one of those people, yes, you become someone who is probably going to want to learn as much as they possibly can, but it says you're going to learn as much as you possibly can within the echo chamber. And the echo chamber can really talk its head off all day long and come up with new stories and new miracles and new rumors of, like, I heard a miracle this, and we have this new person, and we have this and this blessing and this blessing. Um, uh, yeah, that is uh, well, when one is in those groups, one can become a person that learns forever within that, and you're stuck in the echo chamber. But really, it's probably it'll keep your brain busy, but it's probably not the best path to be in. Be thinking that you're the person that has all the answers that that the world is just so needing, but for some reason they don't have, and you have them, and you should just stay here and not engage with all the other discussions happening out in the world. And so when you leave, and so yeah, keeping people within the echo chamber, and telling them, hey, here's the lore, and guess what? There's more lore to come. Um, that's a mechanism of indoctrination. That's an echo chamber. Um, on the other end, of course, once you leave, then you're open to all these things, all these conversations that you were forbidden from having, and all these sorts of things that you were forbidden from even dedicating any sort of mental time to, because God was, monitoring and NSA spying, like, all your thoughts and questions and all that stuff. Um, Suddenly all that stuff is now open to you, and so again, naturally, that's a daunting thing, on top of family separation, on top of all the other aspects of leaving a high demand religion. And like Cody was discussing earlier, one way that I phrased what one of the last points that you were making, one of the ways that I phrased it to myself was uh just try to be okay with, like, the universe and everything and the questions around you just being mysterious. Like, you're just not gonna fucking know. Like, your
Yeah.
body, your eyeballs are never gonna be on, like, 15 miles away from the surface of, like, Saturn or something like that. Like just physically, like, there's just things that are just impossible, and the same thing happens with your ability to consume everything. For sure, stay curious, and try to learn, and just be humble about it, and begin learning that spot of ignorance, like at least you can start inching. I'm glad that you said that earlier. That's definitely something that I've kept in my mind, and that I have found useful. That this is something that these are all things that we've learned in other contexts, and I'm glad that we can share them here. And yeah, here's how mine sort of mirrors yours.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to jump to this comment. I think it can be easy to perpetuate religion, especially when you have young children. My daughter sometimes cries because she doesn't know what will happen when we die. It would be easier, I think, to lie.
Yeah.
But I tell her that I just don't know. I totally get that urge to want to lie to comfort, your child. And I think that, what parent doesn't feel that way anytime their kid is crying about anything? You always want to comfort them, like what, and it's so hard to watch your kids hurting. But I think that, that you can approach it with, I had a friend, because I liked the way she approached it. When her kids ask her about it, she's also ex-Mormon. She says, some people think that, you go to heaven. Some people think that nothing happens after you die. Some people think you're reincarnated. And that's like how she kind of approaches it with her kids. And then she says, what do you think? It's kind of cool because she kind of gives them this space to kind of just like get curious and not box in so much, which I really liked that. My kids aren't old enough to have had these kind of conversations yet, but I'm sure that I will dread them and also look forward to them because it will be like a growing moment, but also like a hard moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that moment right there, that's when the ego is born. At least that's how the ego, as Carl Jung would define it, is born. The I am a thing that will one day not be. And I don't remember how old I was when this happened. But I remember there was a night when I was a little kid and I suddenly was like, holy shit, I'm going to die one day. And it was the scariest moment of my whole life. And I went upstairs and I was like, Mom, I don't want to die. Like I was crying. And she just, I was raised Mormon. She was super Mormon, still is. So I just got the Mormon talk, oh, we won't die. We'll always be together, blah, blah, blah. And that comforted me for the time being. And then I went back to sleep and I never really thought about it again. And, fast forward to like that's when that problem should have been dealt with. And maybe if it had been dealt with the way that your friend did it, like, who knows, maybe it would have lasted a little longer, but it would have been solved for good. But yeah, leaving the church, I had to do that again at 23 and 24, those were just years of my life where I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. And it suddenly becomes, because we're in the realm of the unfalsifiable, it suddenly changes to, it doesn't matter anymore if it's true or not. It matters if it's helpful to you to think that or not. So like the most obvious, like the best way that I could ever explain this is like, do we have free will? Do we not have free will? I don't know. Nobody will ever know. That's not something that we could prove because we couldn't live the last 5 years of our lives a different way and test it, So it comes down to the question of, is it personally helpful for you to live as though you have free will? Or is it personally helpful to you to live as though you don't have free will? And there are actually a lot of people say, live as though you don't have free will. That sounds crazy. But that, like, I lived that way for a while. I lived the other way for a while. They both have pros. They both have cons. It totally matters who that person is and what they end up finding helpful for them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll jump in and I'll say that just everything sort of comes into question, and people well, one well, hold on, let me see if I wanted to say this other thing first.
If you want to think about it, I can hop in if you need a
Yeah,
second.
there was a let me say that in the very fast, in my organization, people wouldn't say that people like died. They would say that people went to sleep, that they went to sleep in the arms of God. And yeah, that's something that has to do with terminology. And that's another sort of feature of of religious groups, and so in turn, when you're of high demand religious groups, and so in turn, when folks are leaving, the high demand religious groups, be aware of the sort of like terminology that you've been handed and that you've been like spoon fed since you've been on your mother's knee, as a kid. Keep in mind what that is, and perhaps it's useful to you to some extent, and perhaps it's not. And one of the things in terms that the ideas, the concepts that comes up is this idea of like free will, and um, I'm pretty sure in Mormonism that there is this that point is like driven home right within each person, that like you have free will, you're fucking responsible for your actions day in and day out. Um, yeah, we have that too, and that is a sort of bent and sort of rhetorically like move towards trying to convince people to stick to the rules, and like really analyze each of your decisions in your life. And so that's something that begins to be questioned once you leave these groups, because that's a sort of like fundamental idea. My and I've definitely found myself thinking about this. And so I appreciate that we've gone in this direction. My idea personally is that I have my ideas of how to define what free will is, and then whether what is it to report that you're experience that you feel that you have free will. What does it mean that if you don't, etc. um and I think that that question is tied within also where questions of like, where does morality arise from, and like what is it, why are people like fucking nice to one another? When you're in the cold, you're nice to everybody. You should be nice to like everybody in the world and whatever else, and to your own fellow members, because you guys have the answers. You are in my case and in my religious group, you are literally, it's in the name, you are the light of the world. When in terms of like Mormonism, you should be happy because you literally have the answers, and you're lucky to be born into this group, or you're lucky to have ever heard of us. You're lucky to be born in this era, etc. And I think that I won't say much more here, but this is sort of my contribution to like pointing out like why it's normal to have these sort of questions, and to also recognize that being born in a cult, that you're born with a certain idea of what you should be looking for. And it takes time to just study and just give time to this stuff. Let your brain chuck through the labor of thinking these things for yourself.
Yeah, thanks guys. I think so to recap just for a second here while our brains are processing, it's like when you leave a religion, when you leave a belief system, sometimes you will find that you start to question everything, including, like they were saying, free will. Like, am I even doing anything? Like, am I just a robot, like programmed to just be this way? Am I in the matrix? Like, there's so many questions. And I like that Cody mentioned that, some things are more helpful than others. And whether we have free will or not, what me and a lot of other friends that I know that have gone down that road thinking a lot about have landed on is it doesn't really matter, but you will be more depressed if you live your life assuming that you don't have free will. So might as well just assume that you do and think about something else. So pulling back to finding purpose after leaving Mormonism again. I wanted to bring up, where is it here? Jordan Peterson is in his book, I think it was in his 12 Rules for Life book, that I noticed him. He kind of went through his story of like, he had very nihilistic phase in life where he was just kind of like, I don't know if there's any purpose. I don't know if anything means anything. And he kind of had this like backwards way of finding meaning through realizing that he felt like meaning did exist as far as unnecessary suffering, right? Like, there are terrible things that have happened to people in this world. And some people have been, through just horrible, horrible things and at the hands of other people. And he kind of took that as like this meaning of like so instead of like looking for meaning in like a positive sense, he first found it in a negative sense of like, I can see that there's bad things that are happening that could be stopped. And from there, he was like, okay, I think like there is meaning there, like life does matter because there is unnecessary suffering happening that I don't want to be happening. And that means something to someone. And so then from that, he kind of found his own purpose in life. He drove it. I'm trying to say the word derive, but it derived it mathematically, took from that, that he thought that if unnecessary suffering is this bad thing that's happening in the world, then the way that he can do good is by alleviating suffering. And he took that to be his new life's purpose. And it's pretty generic, but it's also very inspiring, because if we can remember that as our basis of like, if we're not sure, if we don't feel like we're finding purpose in life and meaning after leaving a religion, then we can back up and remember, hey, there are bad things happening in this world, and I can like choose to actually be a part of that stopping. That can give you a lot of purpose in life. It can give you a lot of meaning. And how do you go about finding that thing? And Jordan Peterson talks about this too, and I love what he has to say about it. It's basically, what things make you mad? Go out and help stop those things from happening, and you can start small. You can start in your community. Like if you are worried about, like suicide, you can make a suicide awareness group in your local community. Like there's a lot that you can do. You can start small, and start to derive meaning and purpose in your own way. And I will say that couple thoughts I'm throwing out here. One other thought I wanted to add was just that you might feel the need to find purpose and meaning spiritually or religiously, and that might work for some people and it might not work for others. I'm pretty sure that AJ and Cody are both atheists, and I would consider myself like agnostic, maybe atheist leaning at the moment. And despite that, I still find that I'm able to find purpose and meaning in my life. So yeah, guys, hit me with some thoughts.
I'll go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to answer a question in the comments. There's actually a YouTube video. I watch a lot of Carl Jung. He's just old enough that there are videos of him being interviewed on YouTube. And so there's one really good, this person finding Craigie. Yeah. So I'm going to just read the title of a YouTube video. You can go listen to it. I'm pretty sure that this is the one where he talks about realizing that his ego had woken up. But it's called Face to Face, Carl Gustav Jung. And it's Jung is spelled Jung. Carl Gustav Jung. Just look up Face to Face with him, and it's pretty awesome. It's like 38 minutes. So find a video that has that title that's 38 minutes. It's a good listen. It's crazy how, so like, as far as like finding purpose goes, I love that realm of Jordan Peterson. I feel like that's like Jordan Peterson 2.0. That's when he's like the most practical, because he's like, the way that he talks about, he starts with, hey, go clean your room. That'll give you something to do. Because in order to clean your room, you have to decide what your room is for, which is crazy. And then you have to build it so that it serves that purpose. And then as you go out and you get all the clutter out of it, suddenly you're like, God damn, this room is so clean. Like the dirtiness isn't a problem anymore, but maybe I could make it pretty. Maybe I could even make it really nice. And so you're just constantly like raising this level. And if you do that, the same things apply to just about everything else in your life. It's like, if you want like things to go well for you, you just have to start deciding like, Somebody in the comments doesn't like Jordan Peterson. That's fine. You can skip this part or just listen a little bit anyways. But like this whole, I need to figure out what the telos is so that I can build it to serve that telos, is like an incredibly profound idea. People have been using that idea since the ancient Greek times. Deciding what something is for and then gearing it towards that is a really, really cool concept. And the thing about human beings is we're not like built with instruction manuals. And so that's why this like ego birth is actually so useful. So in like the Jungian psychology world, you have within you have an ego, which is the aware self. So it's not your thoughts, it's not your body, it's not anything like that. It's the awareness of your thoughts, the awareness of your body. That's your ego. And then there's the anima or the soul, and the anima is always represented as a woman, and the anima is like the life force that lives within you, that like drives you to do things. And then there's the shadow, which we're not even going to talk about today. Shadow's way too complicated to talk about today. But I love this interplay between the ego, and which the ego is always like the ego is always like, Freud talks about it like it's some evil thing, or sometimes like people say, I needed an ego death. And I hate when people say that because it's stupid. Like you should have awareness of yourself. It's fine. But you have this ego, and then you have like this lady soul who like lives next to your ego. She's like the next door neighbor, and she like motivates him to do good stuff. And if you just close your eyes and like let that anima, let that girl self within you, let the feminine side drive you, it's talking all the time. It's always saying stuff to you. And like I've made it a goal to just like start listening to that bit of myself, because that part wants to say things all the time. That part wants to drive me to do things. But when I was religious, I was listening to what the leaders were telling me, and I was telling that part of me to shut up. And I feel like even if we weren't raised religious, we were raised by culture that says these should be your priorities. So even if it's not a religious culture, it's still a family culture. It's still a national culture. It's still something that says these should be your priorities. Listen to these. This is how you become a good citizen. And sometimes being a good citizen, you can still do that while listening to that voice in yourself that knows you better than your culture does. So I hope that I stayed on track there a little bit, but I love thinking about myself in these parts and understanding that there is a part of me that knows that maybe, even though I couldn't prove it, knows what I'm for and will kind of whisper it to me as I go along the path.
Yes, for sure. All I don't know. A number of things definitely popped into my head, but yeah, I'll start with this. We're sort of in the point of the conversation where, us as like people who leave something where you have all the answers. Um, it starts to enter into this realm of like denying that, and then also just absorbing other ideas and sort of checking them against one another, and having to put the time and effort into listening to them, and caring for oneself to the point where one can even like start to really like dedicate time to these matters. All that's very important. And so I one thing that I want to mention in leaving the religious group that I left is that um I am not scared, but I would just not. I dread the day that I end up hearing about someone specifically that ends up leaving our high demand religious group and ends up joining another one. And so, I would, I would caution people to sort of, just be inquisitive of just everything, just sort of all the time to a healthy degree, in whatever way you sort of define that. And, I wonder what that means, at the same time, sort of, you start from, start learning, and recognize that it is such a thing to be conscious within yourself. That yeah, and that is a sort of a special thing, and that not everything that one sort of sees in the world is conscious and has a sort of internal like state for itself, and has thoughts of its own, and like develops and changes over time, and tries to keep a track record of itself, and like, all that stuff. um yeah, consciousness is very interesting. And like Cody was saying, at some point, um there's, people, conscious beings, recognize that there's different states of being conscious. You can be conscious and suffering, and feeling like pain, and wanting the stuff to end and all that stuff. And it's another thing to be conscious and feel like physically fulfilled, and feel like you had a good day, or feeling like relaxed, or feeling in pain, etc. And then there's other, like, feelings of just self-fulfillment, um self-transcendence, maybe, and or like love for another conscious being. These are all, like, powerful effects that are experienced in religious groups, but they're framed in a particular way. And so, like I sort of started the whole, like I mentioned earlier in the conversation, I said that it is normal to, no, not just normal to, but I was saying that, yeah, I totally acknowledge that people within these groups, have these powerful experiences. And so, there's powerful experiences that can still be had outside of those religious groups, and outside of that framing. And um, like Cody and Morgan are here are saying, it is about, one's life is about, just trying to sort of find purpose within, like, an everyday, within your everyday routine. Nothing in the future is certain, and your body, your consciousness, your being, your livelihood, etc., is subject to just anything that fucking happens out in the world. Be it just, be it what it may. Um, um, uh, okay, and then to sort of wrap up my, this what I was saying right here. Yeah, I myself sort of left a high demand religious group, and I found myself, before I had the means to question my particular religious group in specific detail pointed at them. I found myself, like, much more inquisitive beyond just that group, and like questioning the basis of, like, religious belief in general. And so, keeping, well, when you're going through this process and listening to this conversation, and maybe chewing through it more, keep in mind that, like, at what level you're working. Some days I want to think, like, down here, and some other days I can only, like, think up here about the one particular religious group I'm leaving. And other days it can be like an exploration of just all this other stuff that we're sort of, pointing each other to in this conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, guys. So you leave your religion, right? You're looking for purpose. You're looking for meaning. And maybe you're having a hard time convincing yourself that there is purpose or that there is meaning. And maybe you even have kids and you have a job that you don't hate and you still don't feel like you're finding purpose and meaning. And I think in that situation, you've got a lot of thinking to do, right? I think that I think the for me, one exercise that seems to help me when I'm struggling to find meaning or purpose is to contemplate the fragility of life, or to contemplate how my life would look if things were to drastically change suddenly. Like, for example, if I feel I I mostly stay at home with my kids, and that I love and hate sometimes. And at times where I feel, the monotonous tasks of motherhood kind of weighing on me, I go back and I contemplate the how temporal all of this is. I don't know how old my kids are going to grow up to be. Hopefully they grow up to be very old, but I don't know for sure how old they're going to be. And regardless of whether they have a long life or not, their childhood is very short. And for me, I feel like I get um a sense of empowerment, or maybe like excitement, from realizing that even when I'm feeling down, that things are always changing, whether for the good or the bad. So I should appreciate what is going well for me right now, and then look for things that I can look forward to. And that was one thing that was really hard when I first left. I was just so lonely all the time, and I didn't have things to do or places to go or people to hang out with. So you have to start those things for yourself. And hard, but again, you could start small. Go on YouTube and find a painting video. You can go to Hobby Lobby and get some paints and a canvas for very cheap, and you can just follow a tutorial and paint a picture, and it's going to look terrible, but you're going to do something, pick something, do it, and see how it makes you feel. And if you can commit to doing that on a more regular basis, you can develop some hobbies, and hopefully you can start to have things to look forward to. For me, I got really more into music after leaving the church, and I forced myself to even have gigs, with my little band that we kind of put together, even though I was still very new at the instrument I was playing. And it gave me something to look forward to. It also gave me something to be nervous about, but it brought a lot of purpose and passion. And also I noticed that I loved playing music, but I didn't feel like it meant anything when I didn't have like a reason to play. So setting up these little gigs where we would play at like a bookshop, what do you call it, like a coffee shop, or like at a birthday party or whatever, it brought more meaning into this hobby that I really wanted to put more of my heart into. Feel free to share thoughts.
Yeah, a friend of mine, we were hanging out over the weekend, and I'm going to ask both of you this question because it was a cool question, but it got the wheels turning for me. He said, if you could dedicate your life to something with the guarantee that you wouldn't fail at it, what would you do? And as soon as he asked me that, I was like, oh, duh. I know what that is. It's the thing I've wanted to do since I was a kid. You know what I mean? Like immediately I knew what it was. And it's not like I want to be the president. Like for me, that's not it. But I think that questions like that are an invitation to have your soul speak. And when it does, you ask yourself, like, so if this is what I want to do, why am I not doing this? So that's my question to both of you, if you want to answer it. Like, if you could do one thing with your life and have a guarantee that you wouldn't fail at it, what would it be?
I'm going to jump in there and answer that real quick. My thought was back to the music stuff because I was thinking about it, because I started playing violin this year as a 28-year-old. So I am very bad. I mean, I'm not bad. I'm just new, right? And my thought was like, because I often just get that nihilistic side in my head where I'm just like, oh, it's too late. It's too late. And I'm like, no, says who? And I have to wrestle with myself. But I love what you said. If we can treat it like it's not going to fail, we approach it so differently. My other thought was even just this YouTube channel. I'm like, this means so much to me. I'm very passionate about it. Very passionate about having these conversations, and I love it. And but yeah, it's hard sometimes. It's hard not to feel insecure or to worry or to, to think that I'm not good enough, or like it's whatever. It's hard to not measure it, but I love coming at it with that attitude. Anyway, go ahead, AJ, if you wanted to answer.
No, no, for sure the same way. I love sort of coming at it with that attitude, and I think that 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 coincides with a lot of sort of phrases that people like to repeat to themselves of just go hard or go home, YOLO, you only have one life to live. Um, I used to have Confucius's. I used to have a quote from Confucius like taped on my door that said, "You have two lives, and the second one begins when you realize that you only have one." And so it's that sort of just constant like sort of source of just revitalization that one can try to keep in mind as one thinks about these difficult things and perhaps feels like for a long period of time or for a short period of time or in whatever shape or form that they're looking for the answers. They don't know how to sort of step outside of themselves um, and push themselves. All that stuff is difficult. And keep in mind that being alive, being present, etc., is a precious, interesting thing, and it's up to people themselves to figure out what matters, and to try to try to help each other to whatever way we can.
Cody, we're gonna follow that up with something.
No, that was I have one
That was
other
your
thought,
thought.
but it's not it's
like
not
it.
really in the same vein, but it kind of is. I'll say this. I think that when I was very active Mormon, I was like, what are the odds? Born in the best country in the world, born the best religion in the world. Boy, oh boy, did I really strike oil here. And then I left the church, and I was like, God damn it, there's less than 1% of the world is this religion, and somehow I get born into this religion. And now, a couple years later, I'm like, that's pretty cool that I got to learn how to analyze my own thinking that early on in life. Like, some people don't. So I went from feeling very lucky to very unlucky to lucky again. Is kind of like that progression, Do you relate to that at all?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I think I continually cycle through that every time I have like a new big perspective shift. I'm like, oh my God, everything is awful and this is terrible, and why didn't I see it sooner? And then I'm like, actually, it's pretty great that I got to this point, so I should just be grateful.
Yeah. And it's like, but it's so cool that it's like, I figured out.
Had anything else? Oh, sorry, you were cutting out. Go ahead.
I think we lost each other for a second. I just think it's so cool that like we get to think that we're dumb.
That's awesome. We were talking about that the other day. If you remember, we were having a conversation about that, and it was something to the effect of like, we were grateful we get to watch, whatever happens with Mormonism on the other side, right?
Yes,
you were like, as a free mind, and I was like, man, like, I know we have like free minds, but I don't feel like my mind's very free still. Yeah. And it was cool because you said something along the lines of, I think the people that have the freest minds are the ones that realize that they're not free.
Yeah. It's Socrates all over again. Like,
I found that very uplifting.
Yeah. Well, isn't it cool how you can just turn everything into a positive? I think that's like, I really do think that like that is the thing that when the Bible says we're made in the image of God, I think it means that. I think that we can come across absolute chaos and disorder and turn it into something that we can see the bright side of. I think that that's a better read of like, we're made in the image of God, because like for years and years, we've understood that, or at least Mormons have understood that, to think like God has two eyes and a nose, and like, and he had sex with his wife, and now we're here, you know what I mean? But like
spiritual sex.
Which that actually never made sense to me. It's like, so wait a second, two perfected, solid beings made sweet, perfected love with one another, and then she gave birth to spirits.
She had a spiritual pregnancy.
Yeah, it doesn't make any. I mean, I'm way late to the party on making fun of that one, because that was years ago. It
sounds like Joseph Smith would really have a great explanation to that.
He would.
So I'm gonna read some comments really quick. Let's see. I bought a new tee today, and the tag says the purpose of life is to know yourself, love yourself, trust yourself, and be yourself. And I've been thinking about that today. Last week, Morgan talked about Codependent No More. That's a book, and it was last week's video if you want to check it out. Morgan said, be as honest as you can be about what you like. I don't know if she got that from the book, but I've been contemplating that as well. I was talking about how we have we can measure success. And I think this is what this is in reference to. You can measure success in a lot of different ways in your life. You can measure it by how many people you had perfected love with. I'm just throwing back to that God joke. Anyway, you can measure it by how many lovers you had. You can measure it by how much money you had. You can measure it by how much schooling you had. Like, there's so many different ways you can measure success in your life. And the way I have decided to want to measure success is by trying to be as present and honest as I can. That's one of the ways. And I find a lot of purpose in that because it is hard to be yourself. Most of us don't know who the fuck we are. And especially if we left a religion. And I think there was a comment about that I was going to share. Oh, here it is. Someday. I feel like I've been living a life that isn't totally me, and I'm scared to be the real me. And that is so relatable for me. And that's why I think one of the most beautiful purposes we can have is deconstructing all that is not me. I love those quotes out there. There's a lot like this that say life isn't about becoming, it's about unbecoming what you were taught to be so you can be who you were meant to be. And I kind of like this idea that we each have our own uniqueness to us that's specifically special to us. And when we kind of unravel the fears of our parents and the fears of our church and our society, that you shines through a lot brighter. And it's a hard journey. It's the journey of your lifetime. It's your dragon to fight, your fears, your shadow, your issues, your concerns. That's your, you know what I mean? That's your call to adventure, you know? Yeah. And if you don't want to heed that call, you might not find life very meaningful if you're not willing to kind of trudge through your demons, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's have either of you read Notes from Underground?
I'm familiar with that. I haven't read it yet. It's on my list.
It's it's a hard book to read, honestly. It's essentially it's a really small novel, but it's heavy and it's hard to read. It's by Dostoevsky. It's about a guy, just the most nihilistic, angry, like heathen that you could imagine, living in Russia. And the book opens by saying, now, this man doesn't exist per se, but given the population of Russia and given the nihilism in Russia, this man definitely exists somewhere, and I'm going to write his journal. So Dostoevsky writes his journal, and he said he has two of my favorite quotes of all time in this book. The first one he says is, "A human is that which walks on two legs and is ungrateful," which I thought was hilarious. I love that quote. But the other one is, it goes, achieving man likes very much, but having achieved man does not like. And so it's like, we love to be on the path and we hate to arrive at the finish line. As soon as we graduate high school, you know, graduation is fun. Working up to graduating is fun. But as soon as we graduate, we're like, bottom of the totem pole again. We need to pick a new goal. It's just like, I don't know. I've always loved that quote because I think of it as like, creating a safe place for us to live, creating the kingdom of heaven on earth is the act of building alone. Like it's something that we will build forever and we will never finish. And all the meaning comes from building it, you know, like putting logs on top of one another. The goal is never to finish it and go sit inside. The goal is always to just work and do something that we deem to be like necessary or meaningful. I'm reminded now, I'm going to butcher this quote, but there's a quote that's like, essentially like, a culture will be okay when old men plant trees that they'll never sit in the shade in. It's that type of idea. You know what I mean? Like when we start dedicating our life to like the 400-year picture, because we see ourselves as a very important cog in this amazing machine that is humanity. Like, you start to feel like you're part of something bigger, which I think religion was trying to fill that hole, but it was trying to fill it in a weird way by making us be a part of something that was just kind of random. But this is like, I'm dedicating myself to something in humanity that's going to make it better. And it's an incredible process to be a part of.
I'm going to read a couple more comments. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, let me add a comment really quickly.
Please.
I want to add that one phrase that I was in Boy Scouts, and one phrase that I recall hearing as a kid that just I find the language useful for it now is what Cody was talking about. Basically, you're at a campsite, you camp, you're there for the weekend, and then there was this phrase of sort of before you leave, leave it better than you found it. Of just if you're just gonna end up spending the time here, however temporarily, just at least try to address something that'll make the next that the next person that is going to experience it, not you, but someone else that can do it, and try to find sort of satisfaction in that. Try to, I think a common theme that always tries that always pops up in all these conversations of just like, what is the meaning of life and where to find purpose and all that stuff. Something that people always find fulfillment in, and sort of good feelings that come from it, even if selfishly, that there's something that there are benefits to, trying to find the something nice within, trying to help others and trying to improve their lives. Yeah.
AJ, I love that you brought that comment up, and I don't know if you know this, but I think that was totally like a Mormon thing too. Like, they would say that a lot, like, we're gonna go to this place on this trip or whatever, like, especially when I was a kid or a teenager, and we're gonna leave it better than we found it because we're Mormons and we got to make it look good. But it's such a good concept to apply that to like your life with the world, right? I want to leave the world a better place than I found it. And even if that just means like having a kid and raising that kid to be smarter than I was, like, I feel like that is a great purpose, and I think it's a beautiful thing that can allow you to find meaning if you're struggling to find it. And what I see in my life is the more that I better myself, like the more I learn, and the more I learn, the more I grow, the more I end up inspiring people around me, like even just my friends. And it shocks me, I guess, to think that I could have such an impact. But I had a friend say something the other day. It was something along the lines of like, I was saying to myself, I got to make a Morgan decision right now. And I was so flattered by that. And she took that to be like a positive thing. Like, she wanted to be proactive in her life and do something meaningful. And I took that as such a huge compliment, and it kind of shocked me. And it kind of made me aware, that I'm affecting people around me, whether it's in a positive way or a negative way, and how cool it is and how good it feels to affect people in a positive way. That's such a cool feeling. And I think, so the more you can try to look for ways that you can impact the world positively, maybe the more meaningful you might be able to convince yourself life is, and you might be able to live a happier life if you feel more fulfilled. I'm going to jump to a few more comments here. I had been hating life. I relieved some of my suffering. I hired a laundry service. Life doesn't feel so bad anymore. Now, if only I could solve the problem of the dishes. I solved that problem by just making Jared do them. So maybe I'll make him come do yours too.
You can send him to my place next.
I'm just kidding, by the way.
Thanks in advance, Jared.
Thanks, Jared. And let's see. Oh, they were just quoting the book here. There was another comment I wanted to read. All right, I can't remember what that other comment was, but yes. So I wanted to throw out another tip as far as finding meaning after you leave a religion, you might be feeling empty, and it's to build meaningful relationships. So, like, dating, getting married, maybe that's something that sounds good to you, having kids, or just building meaningful relationships through friendships, or through, like, for me, like, honestly, I build a lot of meaningful relationships through doing this podcasting. And it's really cool to feel like I have these friends that, we all have a similar experience and we like talking about similar things. It gives me a lot of meaning. It also gives me a lot of support. It gives me a lot of purpose to feel like I can be there for those people in my life that matter to me. And it gives me a lot of safety and comfort to know that they're going to be there for me as well. So I think one tip, if you're struggling to find meaning, is to try to put in the effort to develop a meaningful relationship.
Yeah. The great Norm Macdonald once, when he was talking to Conan, he said, I'll need one of you to play along. Who wants to be Conan?
I'm Team Coco. Let's do it.
All right, AJ, you're Conan. I'm going to call you Conan. All right, so I'm Norm Macdonald. I can't do a very good Norm impression. Plus I would have to talk way too loud to do it. But hey, Conan, a lot of people say that golden ships might be the most valuable kind of ships. Have you heard people say this, Conan?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but I don't think they're right. Do you know what the most valuable kind of ship is? Friendship. Okay. That's
good.
my impression of Norm Macdonald on Conan.
Oh my God, that's so great.
Yeah, I remember when I left, suddenly I wanted to learn about everything. Like, I wanted to work a summer. I just read this comment. I remember, yes, this one is incredible. But it's not Norman Macdonald. It's Norm Macdonald, M-A-K. It's Norm space Macdonald. I don't know if that was a typo or if you didn't know, but like, definitely spelling it the right way will help you get more good stuff on YouTube. I was like, I wanted to learn everything. I had this weird, crazy appetite for wanting to learn everything. I was like, this summer, I want to work for a mechanic just to learn more about cars. Like, I want to be able to do basic maintenance on my cars. And then I was like, I want to work at restaurants. I want to work at, I wanted to work everywhere because I felt like my whole life I was like only allowed to learn a lot of stuff about this one thing that wasn't even that. Okay. I figured, yeah, I wasn't trying to. Again, now I'm just having a conversation with this person in the comments. I'm sorry. Wait, and do we address that she's like listening to this in the shower, or do we just?
We love it.
We love it. I love it. I listen to all sorts. The main thing that I listen to in the shower is the shower water hitting me. That's what I listen to, but
the main thing I listen to in the shower is my tears. Okay, we'll just keep
going. You can hear your own tears. That's
over the water. Yeah.
You have big alligator tears that are like cups of water.
Like louder than the shower tears, I guess.
Yeah, my tear. Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
No, I love your Move Along. That's a great song by the All American Rejects, by the way. Thank you for bringing that up. Sorry, now you have to show that one on the screen, I guess. I don't know. I should stop reading her comments. Thank you for commenting, LOH. Anyway, your advice, Morgan, bringing it back to a more serious thing. Meaningful relationships are huge. Like, yes, 1,000 times yes. And it's crazy. Like, so maybe a good way for people to practice having like real relationships, because sometimes when you leave a church, it feels like a lot of your relationships were kind of on a false premise. And so when you leave, the relationship ends. A lot of them stay. I'm not saying that all of those relationships end the moment that you leave, but some of them do. And I found that just like being a little bit more, when people ask me like how I'm doing or like what's been going on, I try to be a little bit more like do a little bit more soul searching and give like a slightly deeper answer than maybe I would if that's a person who I would want to foster that relationship with. So like not all of my coworkers, but some of my coworkers I'm very close with. And so when they ask me what's going on, like we have deeper talks and recognizing who those people are and then giving them the type of deep answers that you would like to have them give you is a great way to kind of start building trust. And you might have to, they might not reciprocate like the first few times, but I think after like, if they don't reciprocate by the third time, like a really heartfelt, deep answer where you really feel like they're sharing something with you that they want you to genuinely know. If they don't do it by the third time, then maybe that's not somebody who wants that relationship. And so maybe you tone it back again. But I found that to be a really easy and like, it's not that much effort to just throw out a little extra like, hey, this is what's been going on and this happened and blah, blah, blah. I saw a meme a while ago. It wasn't really a meme. It was just like somebody posted something on Instagram that was like one of those motivational whatevers. But it just said like, it costs $0.00 to make sure that your friends know that you care about them. And I thought that was cool. And I immediately texted like 5 of my friends and I was like, hey, you're a good dude. I appreciate you. And just pepper that, just like set a calendar notification, just do that like every other Wednesday or something. Your life will get better.
I'll just schedule a text to be sent to
if you send me a
each week
text
at the same time.
I will respond, you goddamn phony, who told you to do this?
I love that though. I love that whole it doesn't cost you anything to just let people know that you care about them. And for people who know me, I'm pretty I'm a pretty cheesy person. I usually go out of my way to let people know that I appreciate them and that I care about them. And I'm so glad that I'm in the habit of doing that because you never know what's going to happen. And if something happens to any of my friends, like it will be so sad, but I won't have to wonder if they knew how much they meant to me. And I'm grateful that I'm not afraid to like be cheesy. I don't know. Some people it's hard, but for me, it comes pretty naturally. I just have to shout out to myself by reading this comment.
Do you want me to read it so it's not like you reading?
Oh yeah, go ahead, please,
okay.
Please.
It says, Morgan, you've had an impact on my life. I felt like there is no one out there to talk to that is like me. I feel like it would be easier to meet ex-Mos in Utah, but not in Utah.
Thanks for reading that, so it didn't feel too cringy.
Yeah.
Me shouting out to myself. I just wanted to point out that I really appreciated that comment because I do put a lot of my heart into this channel, and it does scare the shit out of me. But I also find so much purpose and meaning in it, and it touches my soul very deeply to know that these things that matter so much to me are helpful for people. It's really cool. It's very nice. So thank you for sharing that. So it's also it's also free to be an asshole.
You've caught my attention. I'm a cheapskate at heart.
You know, that is good. That is good to remember. That is so good. You know,
can you imagine? Yes, I would like to be an asshole today. Okay, that'll be $5. Fuck!
I can't afford it.
I can't afford it today.
That'll give you some meaning in life. Feel like you got to work overtime just so you can be a jerk.
That's the thing, though. Like selfishly, you should be wanting to like help other people. Just selfishly, as a sort of like insurance on your own well-being. But
I love that, right? Like
but yeah.
to feel like your life matters. Like selfishly helping other people is so good for you because it helps you to feel like you have purpose and you feel good about yourself, and those are good things. I like that. Selfishly be unselfish. That's funny. Okay, so other tips. We've already talked about one tip I wrote down was explore your hobbies, right? And that one is one I can't recommend enough because I think we get stuck in that mindset of like, I'm in, in school, or I'm a parent, or I'm a spouse, and like I can't, like I'm just a person attached to these other people, and I just follow them around and whatever. And it's like you got to remember you're your own person. And I've found so much more meaning and fulfillment in my life the more I make myself an individual. Like I have this, okay, it's kind of funny, but I have this little app. It's called Peanut. It's for moms. It's basically a dating app for moms who want to find friends that are like their kids' age. And in my little bio thing, I said something about like I'm a mom part-time, I'm me full-time. And it's kind of funny, but it was a big deal that I said that because most of the moms on that app, and I'm not dissing on moms who say this because I think we're all taught that we're supposed to say it, but they will say like, my kids are my everything and I just love them so much and da da da. And they'll say that in their little bio. And I'm like, I love my kids more than anything, but that's not all that I am. And I'm grateful that's not all that I am because I don't find it all that meaningful. Some people find parenting super meaningful. I find it meaningful, but also not enough for me to feel fulfilled completely as a person. So I highly recommend exploring your hobbies. You got to have something that's yours that you can just, have that sets you apart and makes you remember that you're your own human being.
Just the moms. It's okay.
Wait, what'd you say, AJ?
Just the moms.
Just the just the moms. You dads, you're just dads. You have to just do that. Okay, let me read this comment here. I'm helping a woman who up until today was homeless move my furniture into her new home. I only know she is a friend of a friend, but it feels good to be there when she has no one. Yes, very on point. And Jay said, it hurts so badly as a JW. I'm hurt beyond words, but I'm gonna make it. I love you all. I shout out because JW's that is hard. You can't leave that religion without losing everyone and everything. And just huge hug for you, Jay, because that is so hard. Totally sending you lots of hugs for that. And I love that you, like, even though you're having a hard time, you're like, I'm gonna make it through it, but this sucks. And like, just be there, be present with that sadness, be sad, be hurting, and then like when you're ready, take that next step. And that's perfect. And this last comment made me laugh. Selfish feel goods. Oh.
I know those.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry. Go ahead, Cody. Go for it.
So, is this the part of the day when we talk about nihilism?
Oh no, it is. It's 8:53. That's that time.
Yeah, I was thinking my nihilism alarm clock just went off. No, because I'm just kind of marinating on this thought of like when you leave. So you said that this at the very beginning, but when you leave a religion like this, it does put a hole in your life. And I feel like sometimes the first thing that's going to sometimes it gets filled by the first thing that you encounter. And sometimes that's just like crazy nihilistic depression. And so like I've been trying to think, what are the ways that I would tell my old self who was feeling that way to like that, like what would I have told myself 3 years ago when I was like in the middle of crazy nihilism? True.
In the spirit of nihilism, does it even matter if we talk about it or not? That's a comment from that's perfect.
That's amazing.
Very on point. LOH is really on the money with the comments tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, do you guys ever feel like the H in nihilism? Like you just don't matter at all.
Oh my god! You're just trying to prove that you're a dad, aren't you?
Yeah, I was trying to prove that I'm a dad. I
You're
don't think
worse.
I did a good job. Oh, I did? Okay, sick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I was gonna I'm curious what advice you guys would give yourselves that were going nihilistic. Because it's like I think for me, I'm gonna say like one day I realized like every problem in my life is either mine to solve or it's gonna be solved by somebody who doesn't care about it as much as I do. And well, here's the other kicker. If somebody else steps in to solve it for me, they're solving it for me because they don't think I could solve it for myself. So I actually don't even want anybody to solve it for me. But like that was a big turning point for me. I realized that like the same week I got like I just realized that like if I don't like attempt to fix this, it's just going to stay broken forever and nobody's ever going to help me. And if they do help me, then I know that they don't think that I'm good enough to help myself. So I don't want them around. And that was a huge turning point for me. But I'm just curious, what was that stage like for you guys? What advice would you give yourself retrospectively?
I'm not too sure. I've definitely thought about this, and I'm glad that we've reached one of these points in the conversation, because that's, again, it's inevitable, and I think it should be, necessary for everyone to have to grapple with. I'm not too sure. I think the sort of strategy of just being patient with oneself and sort of being open to inquiry and continuing to absorb ideas and weigh them against one another. That is one way of that can't necessarily hurt you, but of course, you know understand that you can only know so much within any given time period. So I'm not too sure. I'll have to keep thinking about that, but I wanted to start with that.
I like that. Yeah. I think the way that the way I combat it when I get into that, because I still get into that, like it doesn't matter
Yeah, definitely.
mentality. And the way I usually combat it is I put it on a scale. Like, okay, so for example, it'll be like with learning violin, right? I'm still learning violin. And it'll be like, what's the point? Like one day I'm gonna be too old to play violin or I'm gonna die. I hope I can play instruments till the day I die. I hope I can. And like it like when I put it in that context, I'm like, it doesn't matter. But then I think to myself, nothing matters in that context. If I were to sit here and say, well, there's no reason to feed my kid because I'm gonna die one day and it won't matter. It's like, and so I kind of try to jog myself back into the present moment by being like, okay, Morgan, you sneaky little weirdo, like something matters to you because you're not going to not feed your kids. Like, okay, so if that matters, then maybe enjoying practicing violin today could matter too. That's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah. It's that argument that proves too much. Like the moment that you say like in this wide scale, nothing matters. So I guess nothing matters. And it's like, whoa, that's a big jump. Are you sure you really want to go there? Yeah. I love that.
Right.
Not necessarily to sort of push us in any direction, but I wanted to mention that I totally understand these feelings of nihilism and sort of identity crisis and morality crisis and life path crisis and crisis or not, to whatever degree. I understand what it's like to be, sort of faced with this like eternity of questions and uncertainty and the possibility that that you'll never get the answers, but just try your best and these stuff. Anyways, point is that well, what I wanted to get to was that my partner is freaking cool and really fantastic, and she also plays the violin, and we sort of come to our sort of we've had discussions like this about the topic at hand tonight, and one thing that I appreciate is that this person sort of comes at it from a different perspective and a different, background. But anyways, this person plays violin, and I don't know, it's something that I certainly think about in terms of like, why is it that I am in I go to some performances, and these performances are very often like performed by no attended by like very old people. And one thing that I've learned in attending these performances for violin and other classical music, it's a certain style of music in contrast to all the other like popular music out in the world right now. um it has a history and everything. One thing that I've noticed is that it's a lot of old people that attend these things, and I think to myself that I enjoy that. I am Well, one thing that's crossed my mind is that, like, just I think there's a value in just attending to and enjoying and paying attention to the just the preciousness of everyday life, of the present moment, and sort of interrogating that. And if there is such a thing as like you enjoying playing violin, and it's a hobby, and you're not doing it for the purpose of like making $1 million like the following week. It's and if there is something sort of like enjoyable in that moment that sort of makes sense, it can be reasoned with. And um or maybe not, but just if there's something like valuable in that, it's just a matter of keeping your head on straight and just enjoying the passing moments of like life, and recognizing that there is like um, lovely things that human culture and humans, that you don't even know how many humans in the past. The estimate is like 100 billion, just to put a number out there, that have existed in the history of the world. But so many of these people didn't have like the answers, maybe one could think. And one can't necessarily know, we can't talk to them all, but still, like, the people did things for one another, and people sort of interrogated and had hobbies and had sort of things that they revolved their lives around. And so just recognize that, just as we're trying to communicate in this call, that like right now in the 21st century, you're not alone, because people like us exist, and we think about these things, and here are our thoughts on them. You can also think about like just the history of just way many more people that one could think that lived and died, and things that were completely wrong and perhaps like not believable now, but they were still up to something. Like, there's still something sort of precious and um valuable in life, and in trying to um augment it for yourself and for other people. Religions, like, address these things and these feelings and in particular ways, but there's a baby in like the bathwater. There's something like precious to be like saved, and it may resemble like something like what religions try to put out.
Yeah. Yes. And props to your partner for being a violin player.
Yeah, cool.
We are amazing.
Mhm.
Hopefully they are better than me. I oh man, I'm loving this conversation. I want to read a couple comments from my Facebook group, which you can find the link to that below. I asked people, how have you found meeting since leaving, whatever you left, because it's not just necessarily ex-Mormons. I'm out a year. Pretty much my purpose in life right now is to raise my daughter and to work and support us, living and adventuring. I still have a sort of Christian belief, but my views and interpretations of Christ and God are completely different than mainstream Christian religions. So I do plan to go back to theist studies. I'm just taking a sabbatical on religion at the moment. And I was like, I love that. Religious sabbatical. We all need those after a faith crisis. Other people mentioned joining different like support groups, like for things like for suicide, or for like even just different like volunteering for different, what do you call them, like organizations and things like that. Another comment said, after leaving LDS, I went back to Protestant Christianity, and I find a lot of purpose serving at church there. And this last comment I was going to read said, the movie Soul helped me to understand that we aren't given a grand purpose. It's our sparks. and the simple everyday joys that make life worth living, and that's enough for me. And I especially loved that comment because I feel like I'm someone who still is very much deconstructing from that Mormon brain. And it often comes up with regards to this channel because I'll be sitting there thinking, like, what should I do a video about? And like, no, I shouldn't do that, or I should do that, or whatever. And I sit there and I'm like, I just don't know, like, sometimes like what to do or what direction to take things in. And I had a moment with myself, I forget, it was several months ago, where I was just like, Morgan, like, stop thinking about what you're supposed to do and just do what you want to do. Because I have it stuck in my head that there's this certain kind of way that I'm supposed to be, and that I'm supposed to run this channel, and that I'm supposed to be around my friends. And I'm trying to break out of that and instead replace it with, instead of looking for this one answer, almost like there's just this one right way of doing things. And I'm trying to stumble upon that, instead looking at it like I am trying to figure out who I am, and I'm doing what I want as I discover that. So just slowly, like, what do I want to talk about? What do I, what's on my mind that feels relevant, that I enjoy talking about, and kind of taking it from that direction. So I liked her, like, because I missed having that, like, oh, there's this specific destiny I'm supposed to fulfill. And I needed to replace it with something, and it helped me to kind of frame it up like, I get to choose my destiny. I get to choose what this channel is about, and that kind of sense. That was very, very helpful for me. And the last comment I wanted to read actually said, Jimmy Snow, I think that's Mr. Atheist, said in one of his videos that life is a forest and it's magical and beautiful even without believing in fairies. So I thought that was really cool, in case religion doesn't resonate with you as you've left.
Yeah, so I feel like sometimes this whole, like, I'm stupid, everything I care about sucks. Like, whenever I get into this, it's interesting to me that I never feel that way when other people are telling me about the things that are interesting to them. Like, when my friends are like, oh, so I'm going to start doing this and I'm really excited about this. In the back of my mind, I'm never like, you fucking dork. That's stupid. And it's
What a
never going to,
waste.
yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm psyched for them, And so I don't know why sometimes I'm nicer to other people than I am to myself. But and it's probably because, like, we see other people and we, like, live in our own brains, right? And we're like, we feel like sometimes we're particularly I don't know, different or something like that. But something that started happening to me since having a kid is if I'm anywhere and I have to interact with somebody, like, I see that person as a baby. And it like occurs to me that, like, their parents probably loved them as much as I love my kid. And then it's like I'm dealing with a different person. Even if they're being rude, I'm like, and what's weird is whenever I deal with people in this way, they've never been rude. When I'm like, you used to be like literally your mom's favorite thing in the whole world. You used to be that to her, and you probably still are. And then slowly it changes to like, that's me also, and sometimes that feels like too much responsibility almost. And I feel like I'm not worthy of it. But like, I don't know. I just think it's so strange how we can be totally on board with other people's goals and other people's dreams, no matter how out there they are. But the moment that we have a goal or a dream, we immediately start shitting on ourselves, thinking, I'm not good enough to do this. This is a stupid goal, anyways. I can't even achieve it if I tried. I better just go back to what I was doing that didn't make me happy.
Nihilism.
Yeah.
Okay, I love those comments. I wanted to respond to first of all, the compassion thing, right? That's been a big thing for me lately. Just reminding myself that that everyone is a human being that is like trying their best to live a good life, that people aren't waking up and evilly thinking how they can just ruin someone's day, right? It's usually they're hurting. It's usually internal hurting that causes them to treat other people badly. So I love what you said, like viewing them like a baby, because that's like the ultimate compassion, right? Because you
Yeah.
can't be mad at a baby. Like, even when they don't let you sleep, you're like, God, like you're so, but it's not your fault because you're a cute baby
Right.
and you're perfect and you can't do anything wrong. And it's funny because it's, I don't know, it's kind of beautiful to look at people through that almost like pure lens, because ultimately whatever like quirks or issues that person has like is a result of like probably whatever weird stuff happened to them when they were growing up. And so
Yeah.
the more you can just have compassion and kind of love them with this blank slate, like I think that's super beautiful. And the other thing I wanted to say was why we shit on our own goals when we're nice to other people's goals. I think it's a defense mechanism. We sit here and we say we're not good enough, or that's not important enough, or it doesn't matter, or people won't care, or whatever. We say that to keep ourselves safe, because if we can talk ourselves out of doing something scary, we get to stay in our comfort zone, and we love our comfort zone so much. It's like the comfiest place.
The comfiest zone.
It is the zone of maximum comfy.
Yes. Yes. No, that's a good point. I just totally forgot what I was going to say because it was such a good point. So well done.
That's mic drop.
Yes. I'll just throw this on the ground.
It's too expensive to throw on the ground. Well, this has been so awesome. I have loved all of you guys' comments. I've loved all the comments that came in. The comments were really blowing up tonight. I was loving it. There was a lot of cool recommendations in there for anyone who's watching the video back over. I am going to shut this down in just a couple minutes, but any closing thoughts about tips finding purpose after leaving Mormonism, either comment them, or AJ or Cody, if you have anything to share.
Read The Alchemist.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say that. Yeah, I missed how you ended up on that point about viewing other people as babies. But yeah, I've definitely heard this sort of piece of advice, and like what the sort of utility of it, and why it can be boiled down to that phrase and why it's useful. But otherwise, I appreciate the invitation to come on to discuss this. I've definitely kept it in the back of my mind, and I appreciate you guys' thoughts and articulations of different ideas that I've been thinking about, that I've found useful to that I've read, and that to implement into my life, and to share with others. And keep in mind that that there was no guarantee that answering these, trying to answer these big, large discussions about what it means to be a human in the 21st century with all the information and all the everything that we have, that there's no guarantee that was going to be easy. It's daunting for a reason, and it should be daunting. But otherwise, yeah, I don't really have anything else to add other than my thanks for the time to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, I will trying to follow what AJ said there. This
Share
has
your
been
testimony.
Yeah, I know that this YouTube channel is true. I love my mom
unpack
and
what
my
that
dad.
means.
And I know that they love me.
Especially when you were a baby.
It's hard to do this without my mom whispering all the correct things to say in my ear.
I'll be your mom. I'm the best mother ever.
And Ex-Morgan is a good mom to her kids.
Oh shit.
All right, you heard it here first, people.
No, it's kind of funny when those kids are like, and I love my mom. It's like she's telling her to say. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Like, got him.
Is the mom in the ear saying, I love my mom, or is she saying, you love your mom, and the kid's translating it to first person?
Oh,
I don't know. I would say don't like take everything with a grain of salt. Listen to everything, and then remember that their opinions don't fucking matter. They're just people with bigger audiences than you. Not you, like you, the person listening. But like they're just people who talk on YouTube for a living. Just because a lot of people listen to them doesn't mean that they're smarter. It doesn't mean that they're dumber. They're just a person with opinions. So take everything everywhere with a grain of salt. Listen to yourself over everything. Read The Alchemist. Seriously, that's a good book. That is a very good book. And it takes like an hour plane ride or an hour of just sitting in a room, and you could finish that whole thing. It's so easy to read, but it's amazing. It was super helpful for me in my journey, whatever you want to call this. I hate calling it a journey. Did you know that in The Bachelor, they have to call it a journey?
We
I
need to
just
start
did
a watch party.
I just did
Just
crazy
kidding.
word association. I'm sorry, everybody. But did you know they're legally, like, they have to call it a journey?
I
No,
can only
hey,
imagine why.
yeah, and to the LOH person, even him with a grain of salt. I'm saying everyone with a grain of salt, just with a grain of salt. Okay, nobody's the prophet. Okay, no
Yeah.
prophets.
Yeah.
Listen to yourself. And to say that somebody is like an anti-prophet is just as dogmatic as saying somebody is a prophet. No prophets. Listen to yourself. Read The Alchemist. That's everything I would say.
I'll finish up with just a couple thoughts. First off, I love what you said about the whole nobody's a prophet. And the more I learn that, the more depressed I get and the taller I stand up on my own. Because there's still that Mormon part of me that's trying to find a hero, that's trying to find someone that has all the answers, and no one does. There's a lot of people out there that have a lot of ideas, and we can't always know which ones are good or bad, and that's why we just have to try to be open to learning. I also wanted to say, I love this comment. Here it is. It's kind of what bouncing off of what I was just saying a minute ago. You can't fail if you don't try is a very, very comforting thing until you think about how uncomfortable it is in the future, right? It's like, it's that thought of like, it's so safe to just stay here and not try anything because failure is so painful. But you know what else is painful? Getting to the end of your life and saying, damn, I always wanted to play violin. Why couldn't I have just picked it up and tried? That's painful. And that is the pain that I choose to focus on to keep myself living the life that I actually really want to live. This has been baller. I loved this. Thank you all for your comments. Thanks for watching. And as LOH said, don't forget to hit the like button. She's got my back. And while you're down there, you might even hit the subscribe button if your fingers aren't too sore. Seriously, thank you guys. You can join us live. I do these lives nearly every Tuesday evening, so be on the lookout, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.
Yes, for sure. Peace. Thank you, everyone.